When was the last time you saw two people disagree and walk away understanding each other better? I'm serious. Think about it for a moment. In your personal life, at work, online, in the news. When did you last witness a genuine exchange where both people left the conversation enriched rather than entrenched? What if I told you that debates today aren't about truth anymore, but about performance? That we don't talk to learn, we talk to win. Or worse, to entertain an audience. Here's what's really happening. We've replaced dialogue with theater. We've substituted curiosity with certainty. We've turned the ancient art of reasoning together into a blood sport, where the only victory is the other person's humiliation. Look, one spent weeks analyzing hundreds of online debates, political interviews, podcast discussions, comment sections, academic conferences, even family dinner arguments. And I discovered something deeply disturbing. We're not just witnessing the death of civil discourse. We're witnessing the death of thinking itself. Because when you can't change your mind, you've stopped thinking. When you can't consider you might be wrong, you've stopped learning. When you can't engage with ideas that challenge you, you've stopped growing. And what replaced genuine debate is something far more dangerous than simple disagreement. It's a sophisticated system of intellectual isolation, emotional manipulation, and tribal warfare that's rewiring how we process reality itself. If you're tired of watching people scream past each other and want to think deeper, subscribe to the channel and let's go beyond the noise. Because what I'm about to show you will change how you see every discussion you encounter from now on. It will change how you see yourself in those discussions. And it might just change how you see the world. Let me show you what I mean with some examples that might feel uncomfortably familiar. Take a look at this moment from a recent political debate to highly educated, experienced politicians discussing healthcare policy. Watch what happens when one presents a statistic. The other doesn't engage with the number, doesn't ask for the source, doesn't explore the methodology. Instead, they immediately pivot to an emotional anecdote designed to make the first person look heartless. Notice anything. Nobody's listening. Everyone's just waiting for their turn to drop a soundbite. The goal isn't to understand the complexities of healthcare economics. It's to create a clip that will go viral on social media. But this isn't just politicians. Let's look at social media, where most of us now encounter debate. On Twitter, a climate scientist shares research about carbon emissions. Within minutes, the replies aren't engaging with the data. They're memes mocking the scientist's appearance, sarcastic gifs questioning their funding, laughing emojis responding to peer-reviewed research that took years to complete. Arguments become memes. Reflection becomes sarcastic gifs. Data becomes laughing emojis. Nuance becomes to long, didn't read. But here's what's really insidious. This isn't random. It's systematic. Let me show you how this works. When someone posts a thoughtful, nuanced analysis of a complex issue, it gets maybe 50 likes. When someone posts an inflammatory hot take attacking that analysis, it gets 5,000 likes and 1,000 retweets. The system is literally rewarding intellectual laziness and punishing intellectual effort. And influencers, they've turned this into an art form. They stage debates that are basically professional wrestling matches for the mind. They know exactly which buttons to push, which phrases to use, which enemies to create. Because controversy pays, nuance doesn't. I watched one influencer deliberately misrepresent an opponent's argument, then spend 20 minutes destroying that misrepresentation while their audience cheered. It wasn't debate. It was performance art, and the audience wasn't there to learn. They were there to watch their champion win. The goal isn't to understand anymore. It's to humiliate, to own someone, to create quotable moments that will be shared by your tribe for weeks, to make your followers feel superior to the other side. That's not debate, it's sport, it's entertainment. And like all entertainment, it needs villains and heroes, simple plots, and satisfying endings where the good guys win. But here's the problem. When debate becomes a show, truth becomes the audience. When we turn thinking into entertainment, we stop doing the actual work of thinking. To understand how we got here, I need to introduce you to 3 brilliant thinkers who uncovered this phenomenon decades before social media even existed. These insights will help you see the deeper forces at work behind every argument you encounter. First, Erich Fromm, one of the most profound psychologists of the 20th century. Fromm discovered something fundamental about human nature. That explains why smart people can believe obviously false things, and why we cling to ideas that don't serve us. He found that our need to belong to a group is stronger than our search for truth. Think about that. It means when we have to choose between being right and being included, we almost always choose inclusion. Not consciously, usually, but at a deep psychological level. This is why you see highly intelligent people defending positions that make no logical sense. They're not stupid. They're human. Their brain is doing exactly what evolution designed it to do. Keep them connected to their social group, because throughout human history, being expelled from the group meant death. So when your political party, your religious community, your professional network, or even your friend group holds a particular view, your brain interprets disagreeing with that view as a survival threat. You're not just changing your opinion, you're risking your belonging. This explains why presenting people with facts that contradict their beliefs often makes them believe more strongly, not less. It's called the backfire effect. Because you're not just challenging their ideas, you're challenging their identity, their community, their sense of safety in the world. Now, the second thinker, Jonathan Haidt, who revolutionized our understanding of moral psychology. I once asked a friend, "What would change your mind about that?" He replied instantly, "Nothing." That wasn't arrogance. It was fear. Fear that changing his mind would mean exile from the people he loved. That's exactly what Haidt uncovered. Our minds are moral stage plays, and we cast our tribe as the audience. We don't form beliefs to pursue truth. We form beliefs to preserve applause. Haidt discovered that we have moral intuitions first, then we reason backwards to justify them. We feel that something is right or wrong, usually in a split second, and then our rational mind constructs arguments to support that feeling. We think we're being logical, but we're actually being tribal. This is why logical arguments rarely change anyone's mind about moral issues. You're not really arguing with their reasoning. You're arguing with their tribe's identity. And identity doesn't yield to logic. But here's what Haidt also discovered. Different tribes have different moral foundations. Conservatives care deeply about loyalty, authority, and sanctity. Liberals care primarily about care and fairness. Neither side is wrong. They're just building their moral reasoning on different foundations. The tragedy is that instead of recognizing this and learning from each other, we've decided that anyone who reasons from different moral foundations must be evil or stupid. We've turned moral diversity into moral warfare. Now, the third thinker, Neil Postman, who was writing about this in the 1980s, long before anyone imagined Twitter or TikTok. Postman predicted all of this with stunning accuracy in his book Amusing Ourselves to Death. He saw that when public discourse becomes entertainment, we stop being citizens and become an audience. We stop thinking and start rooting. We stop engaging with ideas and start consuming content. Postman understood that the medium shapes the message. When serious discourse moves to entertainment platforms, it becomes entertainment whether we want it to or not. The platform demands certain behaviors: brevity over depth, emotion over reason, personality over principle. You can't have a nuanced discussion about tax policy in a medium designed for cat videos. You can't explore the complexities of international relations in 280 characters. You can't build understanding between different worldviews in a format optimized for viral content. But Postman saw something even deeper. When everything becomes entertainment, we lose the ability to distinguish between what's important and what's merely amusing. When we're always performing, we forget who we really are. Now imagine these three forces: tribal psychology, backward moral logic, and the hunger for spectacle, walking into a room together. They don't argue. They agree. They whisper in your ear, not to inform you, but to seduce you. Don't think. They say, perform. And that's when thinking dies, not with a scream, but with applause. But the problem goes even deeper than culture and media. It goes into the fundamental wiring of your brain. Understanding this neuroscience will help you recognize when you're being manipulated by your own mental processes. Let's start with dopamine, the neurotransmitter that drives most of modern life. Every like, every share, every exactly. We receive triggers a dopamine release. This is the same chemical involved in gambling, drug addiction, and compulsive shopping. We literally become addicted to being right, or at least appearing to be right. But here's what's particularly insidious about social media. It uses what's called a variable ratio reinforcement schedule. That means you don't get rewarded every time, but you never know when you will. This is the most addictive form of conditioning known to psychology. It's why people check their phones hundreds of times a day. So, when you post something you believe in, your brain is literally gambling. Will this get likes? Will people agree? Will I get that dopamine hit that tells me I'm smart, I'm right, I'm valued? Instead of sharing to contribute to understanding, we share to get our fix. Instead of engaging to learn, we engage to feel good about ourselves. And when someone disagrees with us, your ancient brain, the limbic system, doesn't Distinguish between physical threats and intellectual challenges. When someone argues with your core ideas, your brain reads it as attack. That triggers the amygdala hijack. Your fight-or-flight system lights up. Stress hormones flood your bloodstream. Your prefrontal cortex, the part responsible for rational thought, goes offline. You're no longer capable of processing new information objectively. You're not listening. You're arming up. You're not responding. You're defending territory. You're not in dialogue. You're in war mode. There's even a name for what your brain does next: motivated reasoning. That's when your reasoning doesn't serve truth. It serves your ego. You start with a conclusion and search backward for evidence. You become a lawyer for your own biases. Stanford researchers found that during heated debate, we spend about 80% of our mental energy crafting our reply, not listening to what's being said. It's not conversation. It's parallel monologue to minds locked in self-defense, not connection. And here's the painful part. Brain scans show that when people see information that contradicts their beliefs, the pain centers in the brain light up. Literally, changing your mind hurts, but resisting information that challenges you, that lights up the brain's reward centers. You feel good for staying wrong because it preserves your internal balance and social alignment. Instead of being driven by truth, we're driven by comfort, by belonging, by identity maintenance. That's why often you're not debating to discover truth. You're debating to keep your psychological equilibrium, to calm your brain, to protect your tribe. And once you realize that, you start seeing it everywhere, not just in others, but in yourself. If this is shaking your assumptions, that's a good thing. That's the cost of growing. Growth isn't clean. It's awkward. It stings. But if you're still here, it means you're not afraid of that sting. So hit like, not because you agree, but because you're still thinking. And share this with someone who values depth over noise, thought over reaction, wisdom over winning. Because what comes next will explain why this problem isn't just getting worse, it's accelerating. These algorithms weren't created by villains, but they've become villains by function. Think of them as click-hungry beasts, blind, fast, unthinking. They don't care what you believe. They only care if you stay. And they've learned that nothing keeps you longer than outrage wrapped in tribal colors. These systems were designed by engineers with a simple goal: maximize engagement. Keep users scrolling, get them to click, watch, share. And the most effective way to do that: stimulate emotion, especially anger, fear, and moral outrage. The algorithm doesn't reward balance. It buries it. Let's take an example. A researcher posts a nuanced, peer-reviewed study showing that a policy has mixed results. It gets 50 shares. Then an activist cherry-picks a quote from that same study and captions it with "Scientist, prove my political position right, share to make people mad." And it gets 5,000 shares. The algorithm isn't evil, but it is amoral. It learns fast. And what it learns is that extreme emotion equals extended attention. So you stop seeing complexity. You stop encountering contradiction. You stop being exposed to different ways of thinking. Instead, you get a hyper-personalized feed that mirrors your fears, flatters your instincts, and silences anything that might disorient you. That's not just a filter bubble. It's an intellectual echo chamber designed with you in mind, not to inform you, but to trap you. And when the people from different echo chambers finally meet, it's not debate, it's mutual incomprehension. They've been fed different facts, different moral frames, different realities. This isn't just disagreement. It's epistemic tribal warfare. Battles over not just what is true, but how truth is even defined. And that fragmentation is profitable. Why? Because tribal people are loyal. Outraged people stay longer. Divided people buy identity marking products and click more ads. Polarization isn't a side effect. It's the business model. The algorithmic machine kills nuance because nuance doesn't go viral. It kills empathy because empathy doesn't convert. It replaces "we need to talk" with "we need to win." And worst of all, this dynamic isn't limited to politics anymore. It's infecting how we parent, how we date, how we understand science, how we define ourselves. Everything becomes a battle. Everything becomes a brand. Everything becomes bait. And then we wonder why we can't understand each other anymore. Despite all of this, not everything is lost. Around the world, people are breaking the cycle. They're not screaming louder. They're listening deeper. Let me show you resistance. Not as defiance, but as discipline. Not as shouting back, but as stepping back. Strategy 1. Ask real questions. Most questions and debates are attacks in disguise. Don't you think it's obvious that isn't a question? How can you believe that? isn't a question, but this is, what experiences led you to that conclusion? What would it look like if you were wrong? Real questions invite reflection. They make space for thought, not performance. They say, I see you as more than a mouthpiece for a tribe. Strategy 2. Deep canvassing instead of trading arguments, exchange stories. Ask someone, when did this issue first matter to you? Then share when it mattered to you. That emotional bridge is stronger than any fact sheet. This technique has changed minds on issues where facts alone fail. Immigration, abortion, LGBTQ rights. It works because it disarms the limbic system and engages the human being beneath. The opinion. Strategy 3. Steel manning. Straw manning means attacking a weak version of someone's idea. Steel manning means describing it in its strongest form, even better than they can, and then responding. So you're saying X because of Y, and that matters to you because Z. Is that right? If they say yes, only then do you respond. It builds trust. It shows respect. It shifts the goal from winning to understanding. Strategy 4. Go private. Public debates are performances. There's an audience, there's ego, there's tribal signaling, but a phone call, a walk, a quiet talk over coffee, that's where people open up. That's where real minds change. Strategy 5. Give ground. Strategically, the most disarming phrase in any discussion is, you have a point. That doesn't mean surrender. It means you're capable of seeing truth, even across a line. And once you do that, the line often starts to dissolve. Now, let me show you what that looks like in real life. Derek Black was raised to be the heir to a white supremacist empire. He believed in racial hierarchy because he was born into it. What changed his mind? Not data, not confrontation. It was dinners with classmates, friendships, curiosity, being treated like a human being while holding in human beliefs until the humanity broke through. Daryl Davis is a black jazz musician who convinced over 100 members of the Ku Klux Klan to leave the group. He didn't shout them down. He sat with them, ate with them, asked them, how can you hate me when you don't even know me? That one question, asked with presence and courage, changed lives. It burned robes. Literally. These aren't just stories of changed minds, they're stories of changed methods. Because the real lesson is this: most people weren't argued into their beliefs, so they won't be argued out. They have to be heard out. And that starts with us, not with the perfect rebuttal, but with the willingness to relate. But here's what I realized after studying all this research, all these examples, all these failed and successful attempts at dialogue. The problem isn't just that we lost the ability to debate. The problem is that we forgot why we debate in the first place. Ask yourself, seriously, do I debate to discover truth? Or do I debate to confirm that I already have it? Because those are two completely different mindsets. If you debate to discover truth, then changing your mind is a victory. Finding out you were wrong is progress. Learning something new from someone you disagree with is the point. But if you debate to confirm you're already right, then any contradiction is an attack. Any uncertainty is weakness. Any new fact that doesn't fit your framework is something to be ridiculed, dismissed, or ignored. And that motivation, that mindset, explains everything. It explains why smart people can look at the same evidence and walk away more divided. It explains why logic doesn't change minds. It explains why debate has become a theater of ego instead of a workshop of ideas. We've become our own worst witnesses, not seekers of truth, but lawyers of self-interest. We don't examine our beliefs. We defend them in courtrooms of the mind, with biased judges and curated evidence. There's a difference between thinking like a scientist and thinking like a lawyer. The scientist starts with a question and follows the evidence, even if it leads to uncomfortable truths. The lawyer starts with a conclusion and works backwards to justify it, even if it means ignoring the truth altogether. And the tragedy of our time is this: everyone became a lawyer. No one wants to be a scientist of their own ignorance. The techniques I shared earlier, deep listening, steel manning, private dialogue, they only work if you want to discover truth. They only work if you're willing to change your mind. But let's be honest, most people aren't. Why? Because changing your mind is painful. It means admitting you were wrong. It might mean changing your behavior, your relationships, your role in the world. It might mean disappointing people you love or losing the tribe you depend on. In a very real sense, changing your mind can feel like a small death. And that's why most of us choose to defend rather than evolve. But here's what I've come to believe. In a world changing this fast, the most important skill isn't certainty, it's mental agility. The people who thrive won't be the ones who were always right. They'll be the ones who were wrong gracefully and updated fast. So let me ask you a question that might change how you see every discussion from today forward. What if true courage today isn't defending your position, but being willing to change it? We live in a culture that worships certainty. She never backs down. He never flip-flops. We praise those who hold their ground, even if the ground is sinking. But consider the alternative. If you never change your mind, there are only two possibilities. Either you were born knowing everything, or you stopped learning somewhere along the way and decided that was enough. Neither is a sign of wisdom. Some of the most intelligent people in history were relentless mind changers. Darwin rewrote his theory of evolution multiple times. Einstein changed his view on quantum mechanics. John Maynard Keynes, when accused of inconsistency, famously said, "When the facts change, I change my mind." What do you do? Here's the part that most people miss. Truth doesn't scream. It whispers. It waits. It watches. The people who shout loudest aren't the most secure. They're the most afraid. Afraid of being wrong. Afraid of being invisible. Afraid of being unnecessary in a world that changes too fast. But wisdom is quiet. It asks questions instead of preaching. It admits what it doesn't know. It holds its beliefs like tools, not trophies. And that's what real debate demands, not just from others, but from ourselves. I want to tell you something personal. Writing this changed me. I started with convictions. I ended with questions. And I don't feel weaker because of it. I feel freer, more curious, more connected to complexity, more capable of evolving in public without shame. Because here's what I've learned. Intellectual humility isn't the opposite of confidence. It's a deeper kind of confidence. The kind that survives contradiction. The kind that lets you say, I was wrong. I've grown. And that's what makes me credible. Maybe the real crisis isn't that we can't talk to each other. Maybe it's that we forgot how to talk to ourselves. Maybe real debate doesn't begin between people. Maybe it begins inside, in the silence, when no one is watching, when there are no tribes to impress, no points to score, just you and the truth you've been avoiding. And maybe, just maybe, real debate isn't dead. Maybe it's just waiting for someone brave enough to stop performing, to start listening, to start evolving, waiting for someone like you.